Immortals. Welcome back, folks. I look at my phone right now to confirm that it is 14th of June, 7 p.m. here, Brisbane, Australian Eastern Standard Time. I had to check because the watch face on my watch is right over the actual numbers. I was like,
Nice.
what is it? It's the 14th. This is Musings, folks. We dive into here at the Mere Mortals podcast on a particular topic in mind. And I had the privilege to check this one. It was going to be 2 rights and a wrong, and we'll get into what that means. Look, I didn't have a particular thought in my mind, but before we get started, you got one on this side.
Kyron here on the other side. I actually made the thumbnail, the title, "Do 2 rights make a wrong." You know,
do 2 rights make a wrong. There you go.
The old, so, do 2 wrongs make a right? No,
yep,
maybe.
Do 2 rights make 1 wrong. And so this was I was kind of scratching my head on what to talk about. We did a podcast a long time ago, outdoors for Meanderings, I think it was, off the back of a Tim Ferriss podcast, I believe, if I can remember correctly, with Kevin Kelly, I think, maybe. Can't remember. But they talked about, you know, what's really giving you a lot of passion, what's something new that you've learned, and something else. So I kind of went down this path. Okay. So what I wanted to talk through today was, as we see, what is 2 things that, you know, you've kind of doubled down on, you've confirmed that, hey, I'm even more right, maybe some examples as to why that's come to be the place. We offline beforehand this podcast, we kind of confirmed that one of them was probably going to be a pretty serious one, the other one a little bit more of a funny one. Mine's like semi-funny, but it is funny, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. And then we'll talk into what's one wrong thing, something that we've either turned our mind completely a 180 or a little bit off, we've turned our back on something, or we've gone, oh man, yeah, whatever. What was I thinking?
Yeah,
2 months, 2 years ago.
I've particularly done it if something in the kind of last 2 to 3 years that I would say I've changed my mind on. So it's not kind of super recent, but it still kind of is. It was actually you talking about this kind of forced me to have a bit of a reflection and go, oh yeah, what actually have I thought about differently, and what do I think is still kind of what I do think.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, mine's relatively recent as well. So, look, that's what we're going to dive into this particular topic. At the onset, if you're listening to this, or if you're watching it live, or if you're watching it later, or however you're consuming it, I would appreciate, you know, drop in your thoughts as well. What are the things that you are thinking that, you know, 2 things that you're doubling down on, one thing that perhaps, you know, you're realizing that's wrong, and, you know, at the same time, and we'll talk about it at the end, if you can Boostagram it, all the better, because that's the best way that we read them out, and we'll check in at the end of this session as well on previous Boostagrams. So I think let's get into it. How can we go with the rights first, and then we'll leave the wrongs for later, for the tasteful later, so people can wait for them.
Okay.
Let's go with let's start it lighthearted. Let's start with the funny one. So you can go first.
All right. So I blink at the abyss. So Nietzsche, when he talks about, you know, some people stare into the abyss, and the abyss stares back, and then it's like, do you blink? Man, I blink all the time. He would be spitting at me like, Karen, what are you doing? So recently I had a couple of experiences, which is something I've talked about kind of recently, but it kind of reinforces. Was I got a taste of fame the other day. I was out in a kind of like nighttime rooftop bar venue, and this guy came up to me. Was like, dude, I love the podcast, blah, 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 you know, kind of hyping up, giving me energy. And I went, like, yes, that's kind of cool. And he said he kind of knew me from a calisthenic park or something, but I didn't recognize this guy. So it must have been years ago. And all I could think was like, man, I don't like this feeling of fame. Like this taste of fame. It's not that they have all the power. They know everything about me. But then I think about, you know, I'm creating clips at the moment. And just before we started, I was saying, and they're starting to kick off. And then I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if I want to keep doing this, you know, in 6 months' time. Did a yoga the other day, a yoga class. Teacher specifically comes up to me afterwards, like, wow, you're really good. Like, how long you been doing this for? I'm like, yeah, you know, fair while, but I only do it every now and then. Handstand recognition, reseñas in Spanglish, work promotion, soccer. Every time I kind of get like a bit of success, it's like it's just about to tick over into something. It's almost like I blink and go, nah, I don't want that, and then kind of step away. So it's kind of one thing that's kind of I suppose like a reinforcement that I think is something that I do, and that is probably something I've recognized for a while. Is I tend to, I wouldn't call it self-sabotage, but it's definitely maybe not taking opportunities, not leaning into things super hard.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's something I've it's almost like everything I get good at, I kind of don't utilize it to its full potential, something like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece. Actually, it's something.
So
It's
not
so
exactly silly or fun.
well. It's weird. It's you'll see when I talk about mine, but it's almost sort of opposite in some of the mentality that I have. I actually posted it on Twitter today because it just sort of came to mind, and it was I wrote down, or what I was thinking about was, I see a lot of people who will do things for a day or for a week and get really motivated and really enjoy the action. They'll do it for a month. That's pretty good, but as of late, I've been much more impressed and wondering in myself of, what's the thing you're going to do for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years. And now what I'm really picking in the energy that I'm doing with all things is, oh, cool, I can confidently and comfortably keep on doing this for an indefinite amount of time. And so I think there's either I'm preventing myself from pushing harder, so that could be true, or it could be on the path of, I've selected to choose the energy to be expended that allows me to do it from kind of wherever, which even to this podcast, right? I've still been able to continue doing the amount of work I want to be doing for the podcast with a newborn. And so for me, it's like, yep, cool. I'm ticking the box in that regard. So yeah, okay. I like that one. I do like that one. Do you think that is a thing you want to change
No,
about
not
yourself? Like
particularly. I
being in
mean,
front of yeah.
because the thing is, I still get good at stuff. It just, even though I do stuff for a year or two easy, and or let's just take the yoga for example. I've been doing flexibility training for more than 10 years now, and I think it's more just I don't want to get stuck into one box. I don't want to be
Hmm.
that one yoga guy or that one handstand guy or that one podcast guy or anything like that. And so it's kind of like a long I hate this word, circuitous, a circle route. And
I mean, I would
it's
say circular, but
no. There's this circuitous. Fuck, I hate that word, circuitous. Anyway, they it's the long winding route to get to your destination rather than the kind of like barrel plow through machete through the jungle type deal.
okay. Mhm.
And I think you can get to the same place, if not higher places, by doing it like this. But it is kind of just a reinforcement of that. So there's the positive spin on it, which is you kind of can get a lot of various skills and whatnot, and not get locked into a box, not get locked into a niche, which you can then will then have to struggle to kind of get out of. So that's kind of the positive way of framing it. I just framed it negatively to start with.
Yeah, no, okay. No, I see that. I see that. Well, the reason I think this is even more funnier is my funny one of the ones that I think it's right is, wouldn't you know it, is about niche as well. So, about Nietzsche as well, because mine was more around in one of my maxims is kind of a play on the whole void one, and it's like when the void stares back at you, stare back at the void and laugh.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the ones I've definitely doubled down, triple down, 10, quadruple down in the, hey, it's so powerful to find the joy and the laughter, even in a real shitty, especially in a shitty situation, because it kind of just alleviates things. And I went, you know, I read about it, I've heard about it a lot, and it's now to the point of, hey, I've experienced it enough times to know that during either challenging times or through experiences, or honestly just through like any scenario, even just stressful or things where you want to break the ice, honestly some laughter and just some a little bit of comedic timing or joy honestly fills the room and is good. So a particular example of this of why I came up was, I often find that in connecting with friends, I go, a night out with friends or a gathering with friends, it's always made all the better when there's ribbing involved, when there's jokes being told, when there's a bit of laughter. If it's a pretty sober conversation, it can be a serious conversation. It can be good and it can serve its purpose, but it's kind of made all the better by the joy of the laughter, even in like painful situations. We have a friend of ours who's got some problems from like in his bigger parental company, and we just gave him shit. I just thought, that's fantastic, and it's no harm done, and then there is obviously a line around that and what friendship groups do. But I went, yeah, again, here's an example where laughing into the void is a good thing, And then the most pristine one that's happened that really cemented it in my mind has got to be, 1 a.m, 2 a.m, me and my partner holding onto a baby, just crying away, and there's not much you can do. And I've got it on video, so I won't share it across to to the wider masses here, me immortalized. But it's surprising to see that you're sleep deprived. All you want to do is go to bed. You might be frustrated. You don't know how to put that in this baby, and all of a sudden you find joy in making up this random song that can be crude, can be dark humor, can be whatever it may be that suits you, and all of a sudden it alleviated the situation to the point of, this is kind of good. Like, okay, whatever. We're making sort of the best out of the situation, having a bit of joy and fun about it, and catch the video of it. And you go, that I think there's a point to be made about suffering, and I have my own terminology of how I would denote love in and around the suffering context. But I go, man, if there's anything that's going to alleviate suffering in its generality, joy is going to do it, and a bit of laughter. So laughing at the void, it's just been double down and triple down in my mind.
Yeah, and you see that almost at the end of every episode, where I cut it off a lot of times, but a lot of times I don't. Where you finish off with good, and that is honestly Juan's reaction to a lot of scenarios where it is kind of fucked up, or it is one of us forgot something, one of us made the other person late, one of us did something, or just something happened, and it crypto goes down by 50%. Good. I wish it was more. It's that he's not joking about that when he says that.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. So, anyways, that was my one. But interesting, we both picked a void.
Yeah.
Comment and
Link
quote
in
there.
there.
That was
Link in
interesting
there.
in
Nice.
different ways, which is very nice.
Should
I'll give you my serious one.
Okay.
My more serious one, I guess. But again, it's just pretty lighthearted, and I think it's I had the Operation 30 and Operation 150 last year, or this particular annual goals that I had, which for those who don't follow along too closely was, I was trying to get as fit as I could for a 30-year-old, and Operation 150 is, how can I prepare myself to live to 150 years old? Now, in that particular journey, I found out, in myself quite a few things around, and this probably comes to your point in blinking to the void of recognizing when you can be good at something, but the level it takes to be great, to be the best at things. And so it's a very big chasm that you have to be prepared to cross, and be prepared to burn other bridges and energy that you go and expend. But it also made me realize and double down on the importance of, I guess, knowing from a health, fitness, food perspective, the inputs versus and outputs, I guess, of the human body, the knowledge of oneself, and the importance of, hey, measuring X, Y, Z, almost to the point of almost having the health measured to a certain extent is going to be a more beneficial factor in whatever way you view it, even if you find something wrong, than not knowing about it and being able to do something. Even if you get then anxiety because now you know that you have cancer, or that you have whatever, insert here, some malady that's really terrible. Well, I still say it's better to know that and have the anxiety than to never have known. And so I kind of doubled down a lot more on that, to the point that I can see, well, at least this month, the whole month, I'm just choosing topics to listen to and read that are very particular to food and wellness and health. Just as a full month to just kind of completely immerse myself. Now, I won't be doing that all the time, but I wanted to dedicate a singular month just to almost cement this particular idea that I have in my mind. But beyond that, I go, okay, and I kind of referred to it a little bit earlier. This is one of those things that I will expend energy or use energy up, in that I will continue to do this probably for the rest of my life, in the sense of I will track to some degree certain behaviors, certain consumption, certain energy expenditure, zone 2 training, how much I train, the details of my training in particular sense, my feeling of whatever. Probably more than most people would say it's rational, I guess. But for me, I go, no, that is, here is probably the one part of my life that I go, this is worth that extra, double of energy for an extra 5% benefit. I'll take it. This is the place where if I'm going to invest it like that, this is where I'm going to double down on. So I think that's the other one that I've really come to go, yeah, I'm very solid in this one. I'm starting to deviate away from, having really strong opinions and loosely held. Yeah, this one's not like loosely held anymore. This one's starting to become a little bit concrete. So someone's gonna have to shift my mindset pretty quickly on this, or else it's gonna remain. I'm gonna be one of those stubborn middle-aged guys talking about like the benefits of sauna and training zone 2 or something like that.
Yeah,
So
there you
I
go.
think that's the main one for me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, look, I don't have much to add to that. I think the focusing on your health is it's just one of those undeniable things. If you're getting stuck into a delusion about some sort of cult or some new idea or something like that, how your physical body is responding to things. I mentioned this in the latest podcast, but I think it's one of those ones where it's probably worth you spending so much time on, because your genetics are so unique, your history is so unique, that when you hear recommendations of keto's great for everyone. No, wait, carnivore is the way to go. That's the thing. That's you're having issues, it'll solve it. And people get so strident on that. And I was saying, there's this guy who, even though I told him 7 years of intermittent fasting and eating carbs has been good for me, and it was just like that was worth nothing in his opinion. So yeah, the focus on your own health, I think, is a huge thing, definitely.
For sure.
All right.
And what about you? What's the other positive one you doubled down on?
So this is a serious one?
Yep.
Okay, so my first of the serious ones is wait, so did you do 2 serious ones and 2 silly ones, or?
No, I did 1 serious one.
Okay.
And one serious one and 1 silly one.
Okay. Well, I've done like 6 in total then, because I was like, well, that's what I meant, man. I'm doing like a serious version and a silly version.
I understand you now. Okay.
All right. Well, geez, how should I do this? I'm going to stick with silly for the moment. So
yeah, stick with silly.
So almost everything I say and others say is subjective BS. Well, it's almost like the only thing that you can find the truth on is if it's dispassionate autism. Someone who doesn't give a fuck, but they are just so autistic that they will go to the ends of the earth to research this one particular topic and present it in a way which doesn't have the persuasive language attached to it, because they don't care about that. It's almost like that's the only way to get to the truth in things. And yeah, it's boring. The problem with that is just it's boring as fuck. I'm sure there's someone out there, a YouTube channel, talking about the most optimal way to train, the best, this is how you make sense of COVID or something like that, and it's just boring. It's so boring that you can't get it. So it's kind of I'm doubling down on when I listen to people speak, I just need to or it's almost, no matter what, take it with a grain of salt. What are the incentives behind what they're saying, what's kind of their history, why would they link to this particular thing? And then even if they're really knowledgeable on this one particular subject, doesn't mean that doesn't have crossover to something that is not directly related to it. So yeah, that's another one I'm doubling down upon. Everything. Basically, everything I like that. Is actually subjective.
I've got one more. I've got one more on the silly side, and okay. Yeah, I like that. I just came up in my mind, but I thought it's a good silly one because it came up right on today. Right, I'm doubling down on my ability to speak loudly.
Yeah,
because often when I speak, I can get loud. Right, I can be boisterous. Voice can go around. And today I was at work. Right, so I'm in the kitchen. Kitchen's about 10 meters by 15 meters, right? It's a big kitchen. I'm talking to one person. And I start speaking to him and just talking, random talk. And all of a sudden, from behind a concrete wall beyond the kitchen, all these people come out the side with headphones. And they go, Juan, we can hear you like through our headphones in our meeting. Like, you were so loud. And then that preceded me walking over and having a chat with them and having a conversation and talking and whatnot. But it was all joy. Like, it was all fine. It was all good. And I kind of recognize that it's normally when I'm in like a really confident, really happy-go-lucky type mood that I'll be loud. And I think the loud voice can also be just a very direct voice and I guess confident voice. And I'm doubling down on that. I'm doubling down on not almost aiding it, being like, okay, no, yeah, you should go in there and be a little bit louder than you need to be. And today, actually, I went to go see, I was talking to you a little bit offline, though I won't tell the details, but seeing a particular accounting group. And I went in there And yeah, I kind of, in my mind, I was like, I felt like it was just a new place. And so I went, yeah, got to be a little bit louder. Got to be a little bit louder. And it made it 20% better, let's say. It enabled me to be a conversationalist and interact with people in a 20% better manner than I would normally in a first, touch bases. And that's huge. That's a huge thing. So I was like, yeah, cool. I'm going to be louder, folks. I'm going to be louder, especially if you see me in person. I don't think it comes across too well in the podcast usually, because obviously he's getting through the audio stream of whatever
you
this is
just blow
capturing.
out the mic.
But it is very different, I think, in an interaction in person. So if you ever see me, folks, if you're Brizzy or somewhere else where I travel, yeah, I think you're going to hear it from now on.
I need a little bit of that because at the moment I'm speaking with a lot of people at the gym and they all have their headphones in. So you kind of, it's this weird mix where you have to get into their physical space a little bit, do some sort of hand gesture so that they see and speak loud to try and capture their attention, even when they're not doing an actual rep or anything. Not
Actual
that I
movement.
do that. Yeah. So that's probably something that I should
take on board.
take on board. Yeah, for sure. Should I do my two serious ones? Okay. So the first one is directed effort is your safest bet, and my second one is I am doubling down on my inability to judge people and also kind of my reaction to that. So elaborating on this, I was listening to the Bitcoin Dad episode 84, and one of the things, these are two guys who are much older than me, well, much older than probably 10 years on both sides, and they've very into tech. I'm kind of just into it recently, and they were talking about how it's kind of almost impossible to really know about market economics, to really get a good grasp on, okay, if interest rates are going up, what's going to happen? If they're going down, what's going to happen? And which way will they go? And predicting and all these things. And even they were just saying, if you're trying to kind of make an income from these things, it needs to be your whole life, basically. It needs to be your job. And even then, the only way you can really do it well is by being at one of these accounting firms or, VC funds or something like that, where you have the trading, where you have the direct connection to the stock exchange, and you've got the bots that are able to get that extra little millisecond slippage or whatever shit, and you make money like that rather than just being a pleb kind of individual sole trader. And when I was just thinking, what's a lot of things I've done over this last year in terms of kind of directed effort, the best ones have been when I would want to grow the podcast. What's the best way of doing it is to focus on podcast things. It's to focus on clips and whatnot. If I want to improve my handstands, it's not by eating better. It's by researching particular training techniques. It's by recording myself and re-watching those recordings, checking form and things like that. And so it's almost like I sometimes forget that the best way to fix a problem is to attack that one particular problem. I was having this discussion with my family a while ago, and in particular my brother, and we're talking about girls, and he's talking about and getting a girl, finding a girl, and he's talking about looks maxing, which is this thing where you basically try and improve your appearance to the utmost. You get jacked, you wear tighter fitting clothes, you get the Turkish hair transplant, you make sure you're moisturizing, you're doing all of these sorts of things. And I was telling him, that's nice, but the best way to get girls is to go out and try and get girls. You direct your energy to that thing. Looking fine, sure, it helps, but it's in terms of the amount of hours invested, you get your biggest bang for your buck by focusing on the problem. So it's kind of like focus, maybe, is the better way of saying this.
I like that
focus.
because it's sort of, in another translation, it's how do you, if you want to be a really good 5 kilometer runner, what do? Well, fucking the best thing you're gonna do is run 5 kilometers. That's just, it is more so it's the acuteness of the task. It's deliberate effort at the very acute reason as to why you're doing something. It's almost with, like, to your brother's point of, yes, you can maximize other things, but in the end, there's a very direct amount of energy that you can be doing on one thing, and if everything else is supporting 10%, that's probably going direct is probably 60% of the whole battle. So more energy there might give you overall a better result.
Yeah, I think you'll sometimes see this in probably any venue, to be honest, where it's, oh, this is the supplementary work you can do, for handstands. Oh, I can work on my like wrist strengthening, or maybe I can do my core. Don't do core. Core has nothing to do with handstands. So a little piece of advice there. But it's almost like you can sometimes get trapped into focusing on all of these extra things and forget, if you want to do the best deadlift, you got to be deadlifting.
Exactly.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you can do Nordic curls. It doesn't matter. So
Yeah, like the supplementary work, but there's direct work to do the direct thing that you want to do.
yeah, so that's one thing
Mm.
I've doubled down upon. It the best thing to do is focus. The other one was my inability to judge people, and kind of my reaction to that as
Mhm.
well. So what I've kind of been like reflecting just on this last year, and it's like, you know what, I kind of fucked up a couple of things. Uh, my ex basically breaking up with me, it kind of blindsided me for a bit, and it wasn't, it wasn't like a full on breakup. It was kind of this one where it was a little bit lingering. It wasn't really a harsh one. It was kind of, it seemed like it was more circumstances, i.e., COVID, that was forcing it, but that wasn't the real issue. Uh, a couple of other people, my dad, for example, doubting me about the whole podcasting stuff and the Bitcoin and the crypto stuff, and you know, as of this moment, he is right. The payoff for the amount of energy and time I've invested into a lot of these things and relationships, it's yeah, that they haven't panned out. And it's kind of, I learned this lesson a long time ago where I had a friend when I was in primary school, hell, even from before that, kindergarten, and he was a kleptomaniac. He liked to steal things. And I knew this. And one night, him and another friend came over, and in the morning, $50 was gone from my brother's wallet. And it's like, who could have stolen it? and he
Looks
told
over the kleptomaniac like,
yeah, and he told me that he didn't, and it must have been Nick. And I just straight up believed him. I just didn't, you know,
Yep, didn't
it,
question it,
yeah,
didn't pull him on the
yeah.
bullshit. Like,
And
yeah, player.
it comes out later, of course, he's the one who stole it. And so I think it's this thing where it's my inability to judge people.
Mhm.
I think I actually, look, I'm not hanging around with murderers and psychopaths, that as far as I'm aware of yet. But I don't think I have the squeaky clean track record of going, man, yeah, I really know this person and I know what they kind of are and aren't capable of. It's
Mm.
kind of just, it's almost soft forms of unexpected reality. I thought reality was in this way. I thought people were like this, and then they behave like this. And it's like, oh, shit. Uh, Another classic example recently, dates. Meet a chick, have a great interaction, think something's going to happen, and then just disappears. Just like,
It's
what
gone.
the shit? Where did this come from? Didn't see it coming. Uh, Now, the thing that I've kind of doubled down upon is also my reaction to this, which is I've learned a fair while ago not to invest too much of kind of my soul, I guess, into one person or what they say or something like that. So, you know, even if we were talking about some business stuff recently, even if you completely screwed me over, I wouldn't kind of allow my whole soul. For those who don't know, Juan's just menacingly popping his eyebrows and looking into the camera there deeply. I wouldn't.
Midway through this podcast, you're gonna have like some sort of ATO like squad team gonna break in through the window, being like, "You didn't pay your ADR."
Yeah. We've been watching those Satoshis
Yep.
those Boostagrams coming in.
We've been watching the profits of your Husky NFTs that were coming for you.
Oh geez, oh geez. I don't let that ruin my life, and I think some people can. I think getting burnt. I think becoming cynical. I I haven't allowed myself to become cynical, and I think it's because I'm not trying to kind of chucking. I've got enough of my own shit going on that it's almost like no matter what happens with other people, I've still kind of got my own little base, I suppose. So yeah,
Mm.
just doubling down that, okay, I'm actually not that great a judge of character, but my reaction to getting burnt or bad
Mm.
things happening, or even good things happening, I suppose, is I feel like that is solid. So I won't
Yeah,
end
okay.
up
Almost, yeah, the
a
doubling down
jaded, cynical old man.
yeah, you can't control sometimes the things that are coming at you, but you can control your like your reaction that actually comes from that and going, yeah, okay. Almost in a neutral way, either both in the negative and the positive.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I definitely need to get better at that, but I know for sure that's I mean, I wouldn't double down on it because I'm not putting enough energy or attention into something like that at all.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Um,
doubling down on my doubt.
yeah. Okay, let's take a little bit of a pause. Let's go into the Boostagram Lounge before
Yeah,
we get
sounds
into
good, man.
the actual wrongs, folks. So I mentioned at the beginning, Boostagram Lounge. It's a what is Boostagramming? We'll again mention at the end, and I've mentioned it a couple of times now here, folks, because what we're asking for is for you to be supporting the podcast through the Valley for Valley channel, which means it is sending through a Boostagram or Satoshis via streaming using new podcasting apps out there, things like Fountain, Castomatic. I was talking to Karen a little bit a couple of days ago, or maybe yesterday, around how impressed I was with how much listens are actually coming through from these different platforms, and obviously the streams and the Satoshis that are coming through. That is what allowing us to continue to do this podcast. So it's very much appreciated. And we call them out during the Boostagram Lounge, specifically when you send through a Boostagram. So let's get through these ones. We've got 12,112 sats sent through again by Dave Jones, the weekly boost
The
for the
pod
Mere
sage,
Mortal Light
boom.
Nation. Thank you very much, Dave. Always, always, always appreciated
Yes.
there. And
Yeah.
you'll be glad to know you are not the only one in this Boostagram
Yes,
Lounge
correct.
this time around. That's awesome. We've got one for ourselves. We're just sending through another app where I can boost from Podcast Guru for the win.
Yep. So just a confirmation
1,111
there.
sats
Yep.
using Podcast Guru. So very good to see another one there. We got one from Dr. Petar. Haven't seen him for a little while. Again, he's been popping up every now and again, which is nice. It's Slav. He says, I was a huge listener to Plan B and Unfiltered back in 2013. Chris is an incredible talent on the mic, such a natural. If Adam is the podfather, Dave is the pod sage, Chris must be the podmaster. Great interview, Karen. 22,222 sats sent using Fountain.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah. Chris is good. He is good. You won't hear any whatnots or ums or likes from him. He
was very direct. It did very much. I watched that. Watch it, not listen to it. I watched it, and I really enjoyed watching that.
Nice.
We've got one from McIntosh. He says, best episode. 10,000 sats sent using Fountain. And then he says, man, I keep booting too soon. Sorry. Like I was saying, best episode ever. Great conversation, gentlemen. 210 sats sent using Fountain. So there's a double one from McIntosh. I'm assuming is with a conversation there with Chris as well.
No, that's from the regulations and laws. No, that's the two of us, mate.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Okay, cool. I thought it was, for some reason, the actual direct interview. So very cool.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, say that again.
McIntosh is, he's from Generation Bitcoin. He's, very much looking into the regulations and that kind of is way up his alley. So I'm not too surprised by that. I actually helped him out recently with one of his episodes because he's kind of been having a bit of a think as of his podcast format as well, and potentially striking up another a separate one, and is it worth the effort? Is value for value working? That sort of deal. So I was helping him out. There's one here which you won't have seen. This is 1,000 sats with no note, no message from Rememberjstark, and that was for the Pete Smithson episode, and that was on Fountain. So a big thank you to him as well, and a big thank you to, I can see Daniel Cook was streaming in here. I'm pretty sure this is wgrabber at getalby.com, another person streaming in a couple of different ways. Jordan Bravo, whole bunch of people. So
I love it. No, it's good. It is good to see it.
One thing that is of interest, and this is kind of currently topical, is the Damus app. So Nosta, they have gotten a recent message from Apple telling them that they are not allowed to use Zaps, which is basically a way of liking, but liking via Lightning. So you're actually sending a very small portion of Bitcoin kind of as if you would if you were doing in Twitter and hitting a like, or on Instagram hitting a like. You're doing the same thing, but you're sending a small amount, or you could
Mhm.
send a larger amount. And Apple is going, no, 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 you're not allowed to do that.
Really?
And so they've basically told them, you're not allowed to do that for individual content. I don't know why it is. It's this weird Apple rule related to kind of selling. It's almost like you're selling individual pieces of content, and that's not allowed on their platform. You're allowed to do it at a kind of show level, but not on individual posts, which is basically going to screw up this Damus app, and you won't be able to use it. Another great reason of why it's good to have decentralization and have multiple different apps everywhere, or multiple different ways to connect. But this could have some implications for Fountain, for Castomatic, for Podverse, for basically any app that is on the Apple Store, uh, or Podcasting 2.0 app, because we're essentially doing the same thing for individual episodes,
Hmm.
people boosting in. That is pretty much
Very
equivalent
interesting.
to what's going on. So yeah, there could be some news related to that in the coming future, because if they're going after Damus, I'm not sure why they wouldn't go after
For the others
Fountain
as well.
or some of the others.
Very interesting.
Not a
I
problem
wonder
for
if that'll
Android.
be a bad thing or a good thing. I wonder if it'll call almost like a bad. Any news is good news for the space.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? I mean,
Okay, very interesting.
there's a lot of interesting news. Like I've kind of been watching like some Cardano stuff recently, even the Bitcoin things like Lightning. There's another new layer 2 being proposed / I think getting off the ground, called Arc, which uses these things called virtual transactions. Man, it's so complicated. So I'm never going to be able to understand these things. But
Yeah, I remember when I started looking into like Z rollups and
ZK
stuff like that, and I
rollups,
was
yeah.
like, you know what?
Yeah, zero knowledge, yeah.
This is not for
Yeah,
me.
I
This is
actually
not where, this
don't.
is where I pause. This is
I'm
where I
not going to be a
pause.
cryptographer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But yeah,
All right.
massive thanks for everyone who is sending in.
Absolutely, who's sending through Bootstrams and streaming through as well. Really
Adam
much
Curry got his
appreciated.
T-shirt as well. So just a reminder
Woo!
for everyone: if you reach the 100K limit, 100K, 100,000 satoshis, we will send you a shirt, no matter where you are in the world. And limited shirts, I think there's another 15.
Yep, 15 left.
Something like that.
Get them before they're gone. A limited edition.
That's it.
All right. Down to the wrong ones now. So this is the
so
other
what we've
aspect
changed
of
our
it,
mind
right
on
and the
in
wrongs.
particular. Yeah.
Yes. So what we've changed our mind on, or what we think is wrong. We might have not like gone and fully taken the deed and the action for it, but we know it's wrong.
Okay.
And the one that I've got here, so I've only got the one, and I think you probably have two.
Yeah, I would do too.
Mine was, so this is more along the lines of, I think I'm recognizing this, but it's not so much that I have fully changed the way that I act about it. So it's all around the notable figures or individuals or famous people or leaders of the company or anything like that. For a very long time, I had this almost aura / view that they must know lots, have seen lots, have expertise, should be revered, to that sort of level where I would often go into a company, and if I had the opportunity to meet with the CEO or the chief markets officer or something like that, I went like, wow, this is cool. Like, this is making it. This is awesome. And more now, I've started to really realize that there can be aspects to an individual that makes them heroic, makes them impressive, but you have to remove or separate the thing that makes them, or the thing that you find aspiring, to the person themselves. Because ultimately, every single person's a mere mortal, right? We're just all a mere mortal, and we just, meat bag with a bodysuit, a little bit of skin on top, lots of hair, depending on who you are. Karen's got none. I've got plenty. So, it sort of depends. But we're all mere mortals. And so more and more, I'm realizing that, hey, they can be famous people, they can be rich people, they can be powerful people, and it kind of less and less matters in the end. Now, I'm not saying this is one of those things where I can recognize the errors in my ways, not to say that it changes some of the ways that I'm acting still. So to give you an idea, I saw a kind of senior person in a previous company that I worked with, and I almost went out of my way. I was talking to another person. I was getting a coffee. I was going up the elevator with them. I kind of stopped. I went back out. I saw them. I had a chat with them. Went through to the elevator to continue having a conversation. And I reflected on it afterwards, and I was like, now there's probably part of me who we did that because I know the person and it was a good conversation to have. But other part went, oh, it's because they're influential, or they're powerful, and some of those things can be beneficial. But I went ultimately, yeah, but ultimately, I don't think that's going to be of a benefit to me in a long term. Nor is it something that I should aspire to try to go down the path of. And it's almost in the face of what you were saying with blinking into the void. I went, yeah, I think I had this wrong impression where seeing people who, for whatever reason, just went balls through that void and didn't blink and achieved whatever. The achievement can be impressive, but I'm tying the achievement to the person too closely. And I go, yeah, that's wrong. I gotta separate that for sure. And I'm seeing other scenarios of that where I guess this morning I was actually training at a different gym and I saw someone who generally would go, oh, that's really cool. Like they're huge follows and they're an impressive person. And I thought, here's in my mind, I went, oh, could I make a thing out of this? Could I go and have a chat with them? Could I try to connect with them? Could I try to get them on the podcast? Maybe that lasted for about 2 minutes. And then I went, yeah, but I'm doing my workout. And you know what? In the end of the day, if it's going to be, I'll make it happen. But right now, it's fine. It's okay. Continue on. And that felt empowering, I guess, in my perspective. But it's still there. So it's one of those things that I recognize is probably the wrong mentality to be thinking about. But it hasn't transferred yet to the actions or the deeds fully. But I think it'll get there. So I'm happy that I'm realizing that it's wrong. And it's relatively recent, to be honest. Maybe a year, maybe less. And it's still transitioning into the, okay, cool. Now back it up with the action that comes around recognizing that can be not a thing that I want to continue to be enacting.
Yeah. I think it's that idea of confusing meritocracy for all of these things, or morals for all of these things. Fame, power, money. If they're really famous, they must be really competent. And I think it's probably even becoming more and more nowadays, just because there's less need for hard physical labor. So there's more kind of people who can just crop up out of nowhere, who have the time to dick around on YouTube making videos and things like this, i.e. like we're doing, where you can have that person who just through sheer luck, combination of factors of being good looking, of having a personality like this, of riding a trend, that can get to a silly position of notoriety, of fame, of wealth, or power, and yet there's no kind of substance beneath it. An analogy might be Vienna at this moment is more flexible than I probably ever will be. Yet has she earned that flexibility? No.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I keep hearing this on different places. I don't know why it's popping up, but I keep it. What I miss to recognize, I guess, and the only way I can describe it is that sometimes mere mortals pierce the veil into heroic, right? But it is what I fail to recognize is that it's a verb, not a noun, in the sense that I'm looking at people who are achieving this as, oh, they're the hero, right? It's the tying into this, but it's a verb. It's the action that I should be more impressed by, and not the noun or the collective to an individual of, oh yeah, I'm finding this thing aspirational, heroic in an action that is taken. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden it attaches to that individual in there like that for everything else. And so that can also falter when, you go and meet someone who you might find aspirational, insert here, whoever you find aspirational, folks, mere mortalites out there, or someone you think is powerful, and shit, they might have done something really cool once upon a time or are doing it still, but then you find out something else about them, and you realize that maybe the CEO out there actually has a freaking horrific family life because they just don't go anywhere, and you go, oh, I'm kind of disappointed in that. And you almost, I guess a wrong way of looking at it is you can still be kind of impressed or understand the heroic or the quite driven verb here, action that is taken, and separated from the individual, recognizing that there's other difficulties and challenges to doing that. So I think this is one thing that I'm reviewing and understanding more and more. And then now probably the transition is going to be the action that comes behind that in the years to come for me.
Yeah. I was yeah, I just found this Reddit thread which I bumped into randomly today, and it is who's an idiot that gets treated like a genius. And then it's talking about how some of the top ones here are like Andy Warhol, where there was this quote from Truman Capote, which the only genius with an IQ of 80. You know, Andy Warhol is probably the definition of this kind of deal where, he's the one who invented everyone wants or needs their 15 minutes of fame or gets their 15 minutes of fame. And he's kind of like that. He apparently just didn't have that much talent as an actual artist. And it was just, he just rode this wave of whatever it was that
Mm.
was happening at the time. Another good one is Bill Cosby. Just because he was a great actor at playing this family dad, wholesome and things like that, doesn't mean that he himself was a good person. And from all the subsequent, date rapes and druggings and things like that, you see, okay, no, he's scum. So yeah, I think that's an easy one to get confused. What is there anything that tipped you over the boundary point um, of like a meeting with someone in particular that
No, it wasn't. It wasn't something that was driven by me interacting with someone. I think it was there's small little building blocks over time of either having conversations with people who are like sort of trusted people that have been sharing those sort of thoughts, or reading it or hearing it, and then collectively, just all of a sudden, more like an emergent idea. They're going, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I can see that more and more.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. I quite enjoy that. All right, my serious one is cold approaching and its long-term utility. So I would have said a couple of years ago that being able to cold approach in no matter the scenario is very beneficial and will have long-term utility. It's almost an essential skill type of deal. I definitely would have said that a couple of years ago. I've flipped the fence on that, and this is a relatively recent one, probably in the last 6 months, I'd say,
Mm.
where I am now doubting the utility of it. So elaborating on this, 5th of June 2013 was the time that I cold approached a girl for the first time. It was the first time I ever went up to a girl and started a conversation with her with the intention of progressing it into a sex or some sort of relationship, progressing it further than being just complete unknowns. So for those who are counting and listen, that is 10 years and I don't know, a week and a bit. So uh, a kind of like decade to something for me to reflect upon.
Mm.
And I look at that and I go, what have I learned from being being able to cold approach? That was how I kind of got over my anxiety. That's how I started to meet girls for the first time. And I'm kind of like, well, what actually am I good at now? I'm kind of okay at just randomly creating things, but obviously, if you've been listening over the past 6 months, that hasn't really been serving me that well. And it, what? And I was trying to find all these reasons for it. Has dating culture changed? Have I changed? Am I too old? Am I like not attractive? All these sorts of things. And I'm beginning to just come to the conclusion like it's because you're cold approaching. That's the problem with it. It's you're trying to force something out of nowhere, and this does have some utility for sure. It's not like it's totally inefficient, and this is in particularly applied to dating, but I'll apply this to a couple other things soon. It's you're trying to create it. You're really trying to force it, and I think just at this stage in my life with who I am, that there's better ways of going about this, and it's with kind of just like the girls that I'm talking to, it's just maybe even the culture. It's just not having a practical benefit at the moment, and I start to think, okay, well, you start to meet other people like this. It's a good skill. You can do all these things. You can, it's good for marketing. It's good for being able to, be a salesperson or something like that.
Mm.
And then I think of all these people and I'm like, okay, well, who are people who are really good at approaching, cold approaching? Usually they're salespeople, dodgy car salesmen, they're crypto scammers, they're grifters. I think just by and large, even the guys that I met whilst who were also kind of doing like pickup artist stuff, or pick up or learning game, all of them had these kind of psychological things. And this is getting back to my judging of character. Maybe I'm misjudging these people, but all of them seem to have these. They were weird in a non kind of nice way. I guess there was just something a bit off about them, and it makes me question, like, well, why are they cold approaching? Maybe it's because they're burning bridges. Maybe it's because they actually can't keep up relationships and things like this. And this is that gets maybe cold approaching is really good for people who need it, because they have to constantly be on the move because they get a reputation wherever they're at. And this is where you start to think of like snake oil salesmen, if you want to go down that route. They need a new population, they need a new town to ply their wares, because obviously they're selling snake oil, it's not doing anything.
They'll be found out, they got to move.
Exactly. And I look at myself and I go, well, do I want to be like that? Do I want to be a kind of eternal nomad? Do I want to be the type of person who has to get good at this stuff because they need it? And I'm now going, okay, no, wait, this is I'm becoming kind of like people who I don't want to be like. And the better I get at cold approaching, the more it's taking me into a mindset and a physical environment and friendships or relationships with people who I don't particularly want to be like them. I don't want to be like that. So I think cold approaching just in general is a useful skill for a very short period, and probably at the start of whatever it is that you're trying to do. But relying on that, getting better at that, focusing on that directed energy and focus at becoming good at cold approaching. I've changed my mind on that. I don't think that's got any long-term utility to it.
Yeah, wow. Okay. That's an interesting one. I did not see that one coming.
Yeah.
But at least it's good that you've called out that it can have, and absolutely, it can have a short-term utility and short-term benefit.
It helped me a lot. Yeah.
Doing things, absolutely. It's kind of either getting you over the hump or getting you over the process of just doing something. Like, if that is the only thing holding you back from 0 to 1 of doing something, doing the first conversation, direct approach, first conversation with a salesman, whatever, do it. Fuck, do it. At least it's better than being at 0. But then, once you're in the move, once you're warmed up, once you're more experienced, once more, whatever, and there's other options in front of you, it kind of sounds like in amongst more options, it now starts decreasing in value. And so putting it as a long-term utility maybe is missing the other strategies or ways that you can approach, the interactions of life.
Yeah. And one of the things I really kind of wish I'd done more, and we've talked about how this wouldn't have worked anyway, is neither of us particularly enjoys online digital communication. I was never big into the IRC chats. I don't know if you were. Social media, Bebo, MySpace, Facebook. We don't post stuff.
Used to, but never
exactly.
really got into it.
Yeah. And I wish I kind of had done this a little bit in the game forums back in the day, in particular the Roosh V forum, because it would have been amazing to have met these people and then see 10 years later, what are they like now? Where are they at? The only one I can really look at is Roosh himself. And, he became so good at cold approaching that he became disillusioned with women, thought they were all sluts, had it's not directly related to this. There was a couple of other things going on in his life, but I'm sure this contributed to his eventual complete 180 and becoming Orthodox Christian and just condemning sluts and modern life and basically all the stuff that he used to do to hell. I have no words. I have no words at how this can happen, but I feel like the direct approaching, the cold approaching, it's that kind of person who gets good at it. So yeah, that's a pretty big my major one. My silly one is the utility of public speaking. This is a recent one.
Yeah.
You've seen this. I was making the argument that getting good at public speaking is not useful for 95, 98% of the population. And You very much took the opposite argument of this. Everyone who I've people in the comments were siding with you. When I was asking friends and family about this, they're all siding and saying public speaking is the way to go. So whatever, I'll admit it.
Okay.
I'll
You'll
say I'm wrong.
concede to the masses.
What I will also say is tying in with my doubt and why everyone is full of bullshit. Everyone is full of bullshit because they're all saying that, oh yeah, public speaking is awesome. Everyone should be doing it. No one is doing it. No one is doing it. There's some people at the Toastmasters. I'll admit there are a couple of Toastmasters here in Brisbane. I haven't been to them myself. I only went to the one in Mackay.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of people, one looking at you, my brother looking at you, my dad looking at you, random person on YouTube who was commenting, looking at you, you're not. I very much doubt you're spending any time working at your public speaking. So. Yeah.
Fair. I mean, look, I will say, no, I'm not doing any Toastmasters, but I sure as fuck talk a lot during the day. So
yeah, you do a lot of
meetings.
Like
that's enough
so.
of public speaking.
Yeah.
Yes, I did win out on that one, I think, fearfully. But look, I'm sure there's some Inuits out there in Antarctica that probably don't need public speaking. So you're probably right with some percentage of the population and some animals in this world. So well done to you, Karen, on that one.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Let me summarize, man, because there's a couple of things I got this.
I was going to say, is there a good summary that you can do of all your points?
Yeah. So number one, both of my mind changes, the things I changed my mind on, came from you and from external sources. So this is where it's definitely helpful to make sure that you are taking note of what your good friends are saying, of if you're having a continual problem that keeps coming up and they're kind of telling you maybe a harsh truth or something you don't want to hear. It might not sink in straight away, much like when you were saying a lot of these things, I was kind of pushing back, being like, nah, Juan doesn't really get it. I don't think that's right. And I still think there's some nuances, but yeah, having external sources is vital, I think, to being able to change your mind. It's very, very, very hard to do on your own, and if not impossible. It actually doesn't matter if your judgment is crap. So this is kind of tying in my first and second points. So if you got really crap judgment of people, you're probably going to get burnt. Or if your judgment of, where the market's heading or something like this is wrong, you're going to get burnt. You're going to lose some money. I think the things you can kind of recoup that all back as long as you have that directed hard work, energy, focus. So kind of tying my two serious ones together. If you have both of them, that's probably the outliers. Those are probably like the Elon Musks of the world who they have the hard work, directed energy and focus, and they're probably really good at judging people, judging situations, and making the right moves. And then probably most of the population falls into the camp of two negatives, that they're not good at judging people and they're not great at directing their energy and focus onto the problem. So yeah, those are for those people out there. Maybe try working on one of those two, and because getting two or two, I think is pretty hard. And then the last one was, man, this is a great topic. As soon as you suggested it, I was like, man, yeah, this is great. Sparked a lot of ideas.
Well, he went overloaded too. I like it. He went doubled up. He doubled up on them, so it was good. I'm glad you had enough of those topics. My summary with him, I was looking through there, was there's a saying that I saw recently, and it's being tolerant with others but disciplined with yourself. I like that. I like that view, and I think it applies to some of my stuff because it's being tolerant of kind of external situations and external people, in the sense that don't take some things too seriously. So again, this is coming back to the laugh at the void. It's also be tolerant with others in terms of don't associate them with their actions. They are just a mere mortal, and whatever actions they decide, kind of separate them out as you wish. And so that tolerance, and then the discipline with oneself, in the sense of there's very good reasons I've seen now, from a health perspective, fitness perspective, you name it, that I go, this is worth its weight in gold. And again, doubling down, tripling down on the amount of energy I'm spending and listening and whatnot is worth the extra percentage here, because while it might feel like it's only the 80% extra of energy just to get 5% more, I have an inkling feeling that it's not just 5% more. It's 5% more in the immediate, but it's 5% like kind of compounding, or 5% annually that increases as it goes, rather than just kind of finishes up when I've just do that 80%. So it's that almost recurring benefit into the future that I go, yeah, cool. I'm going to double down as much as possible onto that front. So tolerant with others and discipline with oneself. That's sort of how I summarize that one.
Well, that's kind of my life philosophy. When something happens and it's negative, if other people do it, I just go, deterministic mindset. They couldn't have done anything else. It was bound to happen no matter what. Try and not let it affect you. If it was something I did, man, you had a choice. You had free will. You could have done that better, Karen. Work harder next time. Put in things place. And then if something positive happens,
that's the only time free will exists for Karen.
Yep. And then on the vice versa, positive thing happens, I do it. Nah, it was always bound to happen. Keeps me humble, makes me not get too ahead of myself, makes me not think like, oh yeah, Karen, you actually know, you're so great at judging people, Karen. You're never going to make that mistake again, or you've got that one nailed down. And then if other people do it, no, free will. Congrats to them, applaud them. That was awesome that they made a great decision, that they did a good thing and they chose to do it. So yeah, that's kind of how I view the world, even though
look, as irrational as that sounds, it's a good way. Yeah, as paradoxical and irrational as it might seem from a trying to add them up perspective, in the end you go, yeah, it's probably a good way to live.
Check out the book review of Notes from Underground from Fyodor Dostoevsky. Came out the day before this is released, and it's got a bit of paradox in there. Irrational.
Everything's got a bit of paradox. What was that paradox book you read?
I read a lot of books.
No, there was one particularly about paradoxes. Forgetting the name of it.
Oh, I can't remember. I don't know.
That's fine. We've got plenty of book reviews, folks. Honestly, hundreds at this point.
So many.
All right, we're going to leave it there, folks. That has been Musings for today. Once again, we are always live, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, even if we are in different time zones, folks. We were just talking about this before the podcast. So, look, we're putting in effort here to be here with you, whether you're live or you're listening afterwards, and you're either watching or listening to the audio. I'm actually going to make a commitment. I'm putting my hand up, right? I'm going to put some effort. I'm going to use today's video, and I'm going to create clips myself. So I was going through and I went, you know what? I liked a lot of things that were being talked about. I'm going to create these clips. So I know we don't normally do it with Musings. I'm going to do it. I'm going to see what it's like, do a bit of fun, put a bit of effort. And again, this effort takes time, right? Takes time. Time is money. Time is also energy. And so what we ask of you in return is, if you like the value that we're putting out, is to return back some to us. Now, that can be in many formats. Primarily, we ask for boostergrams or streaming of Satoshis through newpodcastapps.com. That could be things like Fountain, Curiocaster. What was that new one? Podcast Guru?
Podcast Guru. Podverse is also pretty good.
Podverse. So there's quite a few coming out. Look, a big amount of our listenership from an audio perspective is through those ones. So amazing. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
If you're catching us up, through YouTube or other platforms, go check it out. Reach out to us. Go check out our website as well.
You get a better experience there as well, because I put transcripts in. So if you're hard of hearing, you can follow along with the transcript as it's going in Podverse and Fountain, in Podfriend, in Curiocaster.
Absolutely. I was checking that out just the other day.
Yep.
I was listening to one of our old episodes. I'm just seeing through the transcript and thought it was awesome.
Works good. So, I put in images and links out to different resources. So if you are, this is for the book reviews, but even for here as well, I always put in kind of our summary, our notes. So kind of you can read it as well, not just listen to what we're saying. And there's just more benefits for you by going to these apps as well. So it's not just us.
It almost like unlocks another little bit of realm of how much you absorb of what we're putting out there, right? Just a little bit more that we can put and you can absorb. Beyond that, again, you can provide value back to us by subscribing, by sharing with friends, by listening, by interacting, sending us comments, going on the website, giving us feedback. Any of those things also is valuable. Obviously, for us, primarily, it's the value of boostergrams and Satoshis. But, if you can help us out in other ways, absolutely. Zero cost ways you can help us out. And we've been talking about this. We're going to probably provide another way for you to actually provide some sort of value back to us in a direct monetary way, almost an intermediary between now and what the future holds. So be on the lookout for that as well, and that'll be to come.
Definitely.
For now, Immortal Lights, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining this conversation of Musings. Once again, Brisbane, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time if you ever want to watch this live. And for now, be well wherever you are at home. Immortal Lights, one out.
Karen out. Boy.
Good.